What if everything you've been told about money is wrong, not because it's completely false, but because it's incomplete? Because you've been taught that wealth is built through intelligence, through hard work, through finding the right strategies, the perfect investments, the smartest decisions. But as revealed in the psychology of money, the real game has nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave, because money is not math, it is emotion, it is psychology, it is the quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. And this is where the truth begins to hit, because you start to realize that two people with the same knowledge can end up in completely different financial realities, not because one is more intelligent, but because one is more patient, more disciplined, then more in control of their impulses. And this is why some people earn millions and still go broke, while others with modest incomes quietly build lasting wealth. And this is where one of the most powerful ideas emerges, that getting rich and staying rich are two completely different skills, because making money often requires risk, boldness, and action, but keeping money requires humility, restraint, and the ability to say, "This is enough." And that word, enough, might be the most important word in your entire financial life, because without it, no amount of money will ever satisfy you, and with it, even a simple life can feel abundant. And this is where another powerful truth comes into focus, that wealth is not what you see, it is what you don't see. It is not the car, not the house, not the lifestyle, but the savings, the investments, the quiet assets growing in the background. And this is why the people who look rich are often not wealthy, and the people who are truly wealthy often look ordinary, because they understand that money spent is gone, but money invested is freedom. And this is where your mindset begins to shift, because you stop trying to impress others and you start trying to control your own life. And this is where the real purpose of money reveals itself, not to buy things, but to buy time, to buy freedom, to buy the ability to wake up and decide how you want to live your day. And this is the highest return money can ever give you. And this is where another life-changing principle emerges, that the most powerful force in building wealth is not intelligence. It is time. It is compounding. It is the ability to let small actions grow into massive outcomes over years and decades. Because the biggest fortunes are not built overnight. They are built quietly, patiently, and consistently. And this is why the greatest risk is not losing money, it is stepping out of the game, it is quitting too early, it is chasing short-term rewards at the cost of long-term growth. And this is where everything comes together, because you begin to see that money is not about beating others. It is about mastering yourself, your emotions, your expectations, your behavior. And when you do that, when you stop chasing more and start defining enough, when you stop reacting and start thinking long-term, when you stop trying to look wealthy and start building real wealth, you unlock something far greater than money. You unlock control, freedom, and a life that is truly your own. And the only question now is, are you ready to change the way you think about money forever? What if I told you that being good with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are, and everything to do with how you behave? Because as revealed in the psychology of money, some of the most financially successful people in the world are not the ones with the highest IQ. The best degrees are the most advanced strategies, but the ones who understand something far more powerful, the psychology behind every decision they make, because money is not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it is emotion, it is ego, it is fear, it is patience, and it is the story you tell yourself about how the world works. And this is where everything changes, because you begin to realize that people don't make financial decisions based on logic alone. They make them based on their experiences, their upbringing, their environment, and the invisible beliefs they carry about wealth, risk, and success. And this is why two people can look at the exact same opportunity and make completely different decisions. Not because one is right and the other is wrong, but because they see the world through different lenses. And this is where one of the most powerful truths emerges, that no one is crazy with money. They are simply acting based on what makes sense to them. And once you understand this, you stop judging others, and you start understanding yourself. Because your financial life is not just a reflection of what you know, it is a reflection of how you think, how you react, and how you behave over time. And this is where the real game begins, because wealth is not built in moments of brilliance. It is built in moments of consistency, in the quiet discipline of saving when no one is watching, in the patience of investing when nothing exciting is happening, and in the restraint of saying no when the world is telling you to say yes. And this is where another powerful principle comes into play. That getting rich and staying rich are two completely different skills, because making money often requires risk, boldness, and action. But keeping money requires humility, discipline, and the ability to say, "This is enough," and that word "enough" is one of the most powerful and most overlooked concepts in the entire journey of financial freedom. Because without it, no amount of money will ever satisfy you. And with it, even a modest life can feel abundant. And this is where your mindset begins to shift. Because you stop chasing more for the sake of more, and you start building wealth with intention, with purpose, and with clarity. And this is where the real secret reveals itself, that the most powerful force in building wealth is not intelligence, it is time. It is compound. It is the ability to let your money grow quietly, steadily, and consistently over long periods. Because as history has shown, small actions repeated over decades can create results so extraordinary they seem impossible. And this is why patience is not just a virtue in finance, it is a strategy. And this is where your life begins to transform. Because you are no longer reacting to short-term noise, you are focused on long-term growth, you are no longer chasing quick wins, you are building lasting wealth, and you are no longer comparing yourself to others. You are defining what enough means to you, and the moment you do that, you step out of the endless race and into a life of control, clarity, and true financial freedom. As you continue deeper into this journey, something subtle yet incredibly powerful begins to unfold. Because now you start to see that money is not just about earning more, investing better, or making smarter decisions. It is about understanding the invisible forces that quietly shape every financial outcome in your life. And one of the most important of those forces is this simple but profound truth, that your personal experience with money, no matter how limited, feels like absolute reality to you. Because as revealed in the psychology of money, each of us carries a unique story about how money works, shaped by where we were born, how we were raised, what we witnessed, and what we went through during our most formative years. And this is where the real complexity begins. Because your experience might represent a tiny fraction of what has ever happened in the world, yet it becomes the foundation for almost everything you believe about money, risk, opportunity, and success. And this is why people disagree so strongly about financial decisions. Not because one is smarter than the other, but because they are operating from completely different realities. And this is where one of the most liberating ideas emerges, that when someone does something with money that seems irrational, reckless, or even foolish, it often makes perfect sense to them, because they are responding to a different set of experiences, a different set of fears, and a different set of expectations. And once you understand this, something changes inside you, because you stop asking, "Why are people so bad with money?" And you start asking, "What have they experienced that makes this decision feel right?" And this shift alone gives you an entirely new perspective, not just on others, but on yourself. Because now you begin to question your own beliefs, your own habits, and your own assumptions about money. And this is where growth begins, because awareness is always the first step toward transformation. And this is where another powerful truth comes into focus, that financial success is not about mastering formulas, it is about mastering behavior. Because you can know exactly what to do. You can understand every principle, every strategy, every rule, and still fail if you cannot manage your emotions, your impulses, and your reactions. And this is why two people with the same knowledge can end up in completely different financial positions. Because one has the discipline to act consistently, while the other is driven by fear, greed, or impatience. And this is where the concept of luck and risk enters the conversation. Because one of the most overlooked realities of money is that not every outcome is within your control. Because as much as we want to believe that success is the result of effort and intelligence alone, The truth is that luck plays a role, just as risk does, and both are two sides of the same coin, because every opportunity carries uncertainty, every decision carries consequences, and every outcome is influenced by factors you cannot predict or control. And this is where humility becomes essential. Because when you acknowledge the role of luck in success, you become less arrogant, less judgmental, and more grounded. And when you acknowledge the role of risk in failure, you become more forgiving, more resilient, and more willing to keep going. And this balance is what allows you to navigate the financial world with clarity. Because you stop chasing perfection and you start focusing on probability, on making decisions that are likely to work over time, even if they don't work every single time. And this is where another critical insight emerges, that you should be careful who you admire and who you criticize, because extreme success and extreme failure are often influenced by extreme luck or extreme risk. And trying to copy or avoid them without understanding the full picture can lead you in the wrong direction. And this is why the most valuable lessons come not from outliers, but from patterns, from consistent behaviors that have stood the test of time. And this is where your focus begins to shift, because instead of chasing extraordinary results, you start building ordinary habits that produce extraordinary outcomes over time. And this is where financial freedom principles align perfectly, because wealth is not about hitting one big opportunity. It is about consistently doing the right things, saving regularly, investing patiently, avoiding unnecessary risks, and allowing time to do its work. And this is where patience becomes your greatest advantage, because while others are reacting to short-term noise, you are focused on long-term growth. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that time is the most important variable in finance, because it magnifies both success and failure. It rewards consistency and it punishes impulsiveness. And this is why those who succeed are not necessarily the ones who make the smartest decisions, but the ones who stay in the game the longest, who avoid catastrophic mistakes, and who allow compounding to work in their favor. And this is where your mindset begins to transform, because you stop looking for quick wins and you start building sustainable systems. You stop reacting emotionally and you start acting intentionally, and you stop comparing yourself to others and you start focusing on your own journey, your own goals, and your own definition of success. And this is where true financial freedom begins, not in the amount of money you have, but in the way you think about it, the way you manage it, and the way you align it with the life you truly want to live. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth, that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave, because this is the foundation of everything you are building. Not just wealth, but wisdom. Not just income, but independence. And not just success, but a life that is truly your own. As you go further into this understanding, something fascinating begins to take shape, something that challenges almost everything you've been taught about money. Because now you start to realize that building wealth is not about chasing high returns, not about finding the perfect investment, and not about timing the market. It is about something far more subtle, far more powerful, and often completely overlooked. And that is the art of staying wealthy, because as revealed in the psychology of money, getting money and keeping money require entirely different mindsets, entirely different behaviors, and entirely different levels of discipline. And this is where many people succeed in one phase but fail in the other, because making money often requires optimism, risk-taking, and bold action. But keeping money requires the opposite. It requires humility, caution, and the ability to recognize that what you have can be lost just as easily as it was gained. And this is where one of the most important principles emerges, that survival is the foundation of success. Because if you can stay in the game long enough, if you can avoid catastrophic mistakes, if you can protect what you have, you give yourself the opportunity for compounding to work its magic. And this is where the real power lies, not in how much you make in a single moment, but in how long you can sustain growth over time. And this is why the most successful investors are not those who take the biggest risks, but those who manage risk effectively, who understand that avoiding ruin is more important than maximizing returns. And this is where another powerful truth comes into focus, that you must always leave room for error, because the future is uncertain, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. And no matter how confident you are, No matter how certain your strategy feels, there will always be variables you cannot control, events you cannot predict, and outcomes you cannot foresee. And this is why margin of safety becomes essential, because it protects you from the unexpected, it gives you resilience, and it allows you to continue forward even when things don't go as planned. And this is where financial freedom principles align perfectly. Because true wealth is not about taking unnecessary risks. It is about creating stability, consistency, and sustainability. It is about building a system that can withstand shocks, adapt to change, and continue to grow over time. And this is where another powerful insight emerges. That wealth is not what you see, it is what you don't see, because the cars, the houses, the luxury items, these are not indicators of wealth. They are often the result of spending wealth. But true wealth is hidden. It is the money that is saved, the investments that are quietly compounding, the assets that are growing in the background. And this is why the most financially successful individuals often appear ordinary, because they are not focused on displaying wealth. They are focused on building it. And this is where your mindset begins to shift, because you stop trying to look rich and you start trying to be rich. And this is where another critical principle comes into play. That saving money is not just about financial security, it is about independence. Because every dollar you save gives you a little more control over your life, a little more and a little more distance from dependence on others. And this is why saving is not just a financial habit, it is a lifestyle, it is a mindset, and it is a commitment to your future self. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that being reasonable is more important than being rational. Because in theory, the best financial decisions are those that maximize returns, but in reality, the best decisions are those that you can stick with, those that align with your personality, your tolerance for risk, and your ability to remain consistent over time. And this is why simplicity often outperforms complexity, because simple strategies are easier to maintain, easier to understand, and less likely to be abandoned during moments of stress. And this is where your approach to money becomes sustainable, because you are no longer chasing perfection, you are building consistency. And this is where another profound insight reveals itself, that your financial plan should not be based on who you are today, but on who you will become, because your goals, your priorities, and your circumstances will change over time. And if your plan is too rigid, too fixed, or too dependent on a specific outcome, it will eventually break. And this is why flexibility becomes essential, because it allows you to adapt, to evolve, and to continue moving forward even as your life changes. And this is where your journey becomes dynamic, because you are no longer following a fixed path, you are navigating a constantly changing landscape. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that nothing in finance is free, because every reward comes with a cost, every opportunity comes with risk, and every decision involves trade-offs. And this is why understanding those trade-offs is critical, because it allows you to make informed decisions, to manage expectations, and to avoid disappointment. And this is where your perspective begins to mature, because you stop looking for easy answers and you start embracing complexity. You stop expecting certainty and you start preparing for uncertainty. And you stop chasing quick results and you start building long-term value. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth, that the ability to stick around for a long time without wiping out is what makes the biggest difference, because this is the essence of wealth. Not just earning, but enduring, not just growing, but sustaining. And when you fully embrace this, when you prioritize survival, when you build systems that protect and grow your assets, and when you align your behavior with long-term thinking, you don't just build wealth, you create a financial life that is stable, resilient, and truly free. As you continue along this path, you begin to realize that money is not just about growth, not just about protecting what you have, but about something even deeper, something more personal, and that is control. Because at its core, the true value of money is not in what it can buy, but in what it allows you to do, how it allows you to live, and the freedom it gives you to wake up each day and decide how you will spend your time. Because as revealed in the psychology of money, the highest form of wealth is the ability to control your time. And this is where everything begins to shift because most people chase money thinking it will bring happiness, status, or security, but what they are really chasing, whether they realize it or not, is autonomy. The ability to make choices without being constrained by financial pressure. And this is where one of the most powerful financial principles emerges, that the goal of money is not to impress others, but to give yourself options. Because when you have options, you have freedom. And when you have freedom, you have control over your life. And this is something that cannot be measured in dollars alone, because it is deeply tied to how you feel, how you think, and how you experience the world around you. And this is why two people with the same amount of money can have completely different levels of happiness. Because one uses money to buy things while the other uses money to buy time, flexibility, and peace of mind. And this is where the real distinction lies. Because spending money to impress others often leads to stress, comparison, and dissatisfaction, while using money to gain control over your life leads to fulfillment, clarity, and long-term happiness. And this is where another powerful truth comes into focus, that wealth is what you don't see. Because the most valuable financial decisions are often invisible. They are the things you choose not to buy, the risks you choose not to take, the lifestyle inflation you choose to avoid, and the discipline you maintain even when no one is watching. And this is why true wealth is quiet. It does not need to be displayed. It does not need to be validated. It simply exists in the background, growing steadily, providing security and creating opportunities. And this is where your mindset begins to evolve, because you stop measuring success by external signals and you start measuring it by internal stability, by the strength of your financial foundation, and by the level of control you have over your life. And this is where another critical insight emerges. That saving money is not just about preparing for the future, it is about creating flexibility in the present. Because every dollar you save gives you the ability to say no, to walk away from situations that do not serve you, to take risks that align with your goals, and to pursue opportunities that might otherwise be out of reach. And this is why saving is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. Because it is a commitment to your future, a recognition that your time and your choices matter. And this is where financial freedom principles become deeply practical. Because instead of asking, how much can I earn, you begin to ask, how much do I need, how much is enough, and how can I structure my life in a way that maximizes freedom rather than consumption? And this is where another powerful idea comes into play, the paradox of wealth. Because the people who look the richest are often not the wealthiest, and the people who are truly wealthy often look ordinary, because they understand that money spent is money gone, but money saved and invested is money that continues to work for you. And this is where your behavior becomes the defining factor, because it is not about how much you make, but how much you keep, how you manage it, and how you allow it to grow over time. And this is where another profound truth reveals itself. Financial success is not about maximizing every opportunity. It is about aligning your decisions with your values, because when your financial life is aligned with what truly matters to you, you experience a level of clarity and peace that cannot be achieved through money alone. And this is where your journey becomes deeply personal, because you are no longer following someone else's definition of success. You are creating your own. You are defining what freedom means to you, what enough looks like for you, and what kind of life you want to build. And this is where another powerful insight emerges. That managing money is not just about numbers. It is about behavior. It is about discipline. It is about patience. And it is about the ability to make decisions that align with your long-term goals, even when they conflict with your short-term desires. And this is where your growth becomes evident. Because you are no longer reacting impulsively, you are acting intentionally. You are no longer chasing trends. You are building stability, and you are no longer measuring success by what others see. You are measuring it by what you feel, by the level of control, freedom, and security you have created in your life. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth, that having control over your time is the highest dividend money pays. Because this is the essence of everything you are building, not just wealth, but freedom, not just income, but independence, and not just success, but a life that is truly your own. As you move deeper into this journey, something even more subtle begins to reveal itself. Something that most people overlook because it doesn't scream for attention, it doesn't promise excitement, and it doesn't offer instant gratification. Yet it holds one of the greatest keys to long-term success. And that is the power of compounding, because as explained in The Psychology of Money, the most extraordinary financial outcomes are not the result of dramatic actions, but of small, consistent behaviors repeated over long periods of time. And this is where many people lose the game before they even begin, because they underestimate how powerful time truly is. They underestimate how small gains can turn into massive results, and they overestimate how much they need to do right now to succeed. And this is where the story of Warren Buffett becomes more than just inspiration. It becomes a lesson in patience, because his wealth was not built overnight. It was built over decades, through steady growth, through disciplined investing, and most importantly, through time. Because the majority of his wealth came later in life, not because he suddenly became smarter, but because his money had more time to compound. And this is where a powerful realization begins to take hold, that success is not just about what you do, it is about how long you keep doing it. Because compounding only works if you give it time, and time only works if you stay in the game. And this is why consistency becomes more important than intensity, because a small action repeated for years will always outperform a large action done once. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that good investing is not about earning the highest returns. It is about earning reasonable returns for a very long time, because the longer you can sustain growth, the more powerful the compounding effect becomes. And this is where your mindset begins to shift, because you stop chasing quick wins, you stop looking for shortcuts, and you start focusing on longevity, on sustainability, and on building systems that allow you to keep going no matter what happens in the short term. And this is where another critical insight comes into play, that volatility is the price you pay for long-term returns, because the market will rise and fall, your investments will fluctuate, and uncertainty will always be present. But those who succeed are not the ones who avoid volatility. They are the ones who endure it, who understand that short-term pain is often the cost of long-term gain. And this is where discipline becomes your greatest asset, because it allows you to stay committed, to stay consistent, and to stay focused even when the results are not immediately visible. And this is where another powerful principle emerges, that wealth is built quietly, because compounding does not attract attention, it does not create excitement, and it does not provide instant rewards, but over time, it creates results that are almost unimaginable. And this is why patience is so rare, because it requires you to trust a process that you cannot fully see, to believe in results that have not yet materialized, and to continue moving forward even when progress feels slow. And this is where financial freedom principles align perfectly. Because building wealth is not about making perfect decisions, it is about making good decisions consistently. It is about saving regularly, investing wisely, avoiding unnecessary risks, and allowing time to do its work. And this is where another powerful insight reveals itself, that the biggest risk in investing is not volatility, it is quitting. Because the moment you step out of the game, the moment you stop compounding, you lose the most powerful force working in your favor. And this is why resilience becomes essential, because it allows you to stay in the game, to recover from setbacks, and to continue moving forward even when things don't go as planned. And this is where your journey becomes long-term, because you are no longer focused on immediate results. You are focused on building something that will grow over years, over decades, and over a lifetime. And this is where another profound truth emerges, that time is the most valuable asset you have, not just in money, but in life. Because it is the one thing you cannot replace, the one thing you cannot earn back, and the one thing that determines how much your efforts can grow. And this is why starting early, staying consistent, and being patient are the most powerful strategies you can adopt. Because they allow you to maximize the effect of time, and this is where your perspective begins to mature. Because you stop asking, how can I get rich quickly? And you start asking, how can I stay in the game long enough to let compounding work? And this is where your financial life becomes stable, sustainable, and aligned with long-term success. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth, that the most powerful force in investing is not intelligence, It is time because when you combine time with consistency, discipline, and patience, you unlock a level of growth that most people never experience. Not because it is impossible, but because they were not willing to wait for it. And when you embrace this, when you commit to the long-term process, and when you allow compounding to work in your favor, you don't just build wealth. You build a future that is secure, abundant, and truly free. And now, as you reach the final stage of this journey, everything begins to connect in a way that is both simple and deeply transformative. Because what you have uncovered is not just how money works, but how life works through the lens of money, and as revealed throughout the psychology of money. Forward from here, remember this powerful truth that a wealth is not about having more. It is about needing less and controlling what you have. Because this is the essence of everything you have discovered. That true success is not measured by numbers, but by freedom, by peace, freedom, and by the ability to live life on your own terms. And when you embrace this, when you align your behavior with your values, and when you commit to long-term thinking, you don't just build financial wealth, you build a life that is rich in every sense of the word.